World War II is one of, if not the most destructive conflict to ever occur on this earth.
A total of over 60 million people were killed in the fighting.
Although they did not join until late 1941, the United States played a major role in the Second World War.
The Lend-lease policy was sort of the middle ground between President of the United States Franklin Delano Roosevelt's determination to help the Allies fight back the Nazis, and Congress's caution to stay out of World War II. FDR wanted to help countries engage with war with the Nazis, but American law and public opinion blocked his path. Many Americans didn't want to enter another great war because of the heavy casualties of the first. And on the political side, Army Chief of Staff General George C. Marshall opposed sending the United Kingdom aid, as he predicted the UK would surrender when the Nazis took France, thus making all US supplies sent there fall into Nazi hands. One of the most memorable military attacks in American history, the attack on Pearl Harbor tipped the United States into entering the Second Great War. Because the US was not expecting an attack so close to the mainland, Pearl Harbor was relatively undefended, and the entire Pacific Fleet, except the aircraft carriers, were anchored in one place with an airfield adjacent to the dock. Japan was smart. They knew the US's Navy was at least twice as powerful as theirs, and they saw that the US was leaning closer to joining the Allies. The only way the Axis could win the war was by bringing America to its knees. So, on December 7th, 1941, Japanese radio chatter was filled with the code word Tora, 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 which directly translates to tiger or lightning attack in Japanese. At 0700 hours, Japanese aircraft carriers were spotted near the Philippines. Their target, Oahu. At 0800 hours, Japanese aircraft filled the sky above Pearl Harbor. 10 minutes later, a 1,800-pound bomb hits the USS Arizona's ammunition bay, setting off over 1 million pounds of gunpowder, killing 1,177 men on board. 7 minutes after the Arizona got hit, all ships except 7 battleships were firing anti-aircraft guns into the air and torpedoing nearby submarines. At 8:30, the destroyer Monaghan attempted to leave the harbor, but it was hit by a kamikaze pilot and sank. At 8:45, Japanese officials realized that the carriers were not docked at the harbor, and then 9 minutes later, the second wave launches and is met by heavy anti-aircraft fire. The USS Pennsylvania was hit by a bomb and began to sink at that time. At 10 o'clock, Japanese officials called off the third wave. The attack officially ends. By the end of the attack, all 7 battleships stationed at Pearl Harbor had sustained significant damage, but all, except the USS Arizona, the USS Utah, and the USS Oklahoma, were salvaged and repaired. And of the 29 Japanese fighters lost, 15 of them are estimated to have been shot down by anti-aircraft guns. The attack in total destroyed 12 ships and more than 300 aircraft. It also injured more than 1,000 people and killed more than 2,500. The president was outraged, and on December 8, 1941, he gave a speech asking for Congress to declare war.
Yesterday, December 7th, 1941, a date which will live in infamy. The United States of America was suddenly and deliberately attacked by naval and air forces of the Empire of Japan. The United States was at peace with that nation.
Later that day, Congress declared a war on Japan with a vote of 388 to 1. The attack was actually more of a failure on Japan's part. They failed to destroy the Pacific Fleet because none of their aircraft carriers were moored there at the time. They brought one of the strongest armies and navies into the war on the opposing side, and they left all Pearl Harbor's vital buildings, the ore storage depots, the shipyards, the submarine docks, and the repair shops intact. And even though 353 planes left Japan, less than 20 Japanese aircraft returned from the attack. In the 44 months of war that followed this attack, the U.S. Navy sunk every carrier, destroyer, battleship, and submarine involved with the attack, and the crew of the USS West Virginia was present at the signing of Japan's official surrender.
The Savannah and Brunswick shipyards were very important during the war due to the shipyards being chosen as one of the few sites to construct cargo vessels that would help Allied forces in Europe by giving resources to the troops. After the U.S. declared war, the Liberty ships were being built at an astounding rate. Brunswick shipyard built 99 ships, 88 of which were Liberty ships. These ships were all built from 1941 to 1945. Savannah shipyard were told to only build 36 ships, but the shipyard ended up building 88 ships from 1942 to 1945.
Richard Russell was able to help reorganize the state's government by reducing the number of agencies from 102 to 17. Richard Russell was able to get into national politics when a senator died. Richard Russell was one of the youngest members to join the Senate, and he was appointed to the Naval Affairs Committee.
The impact and effect of the Holocaust in World War II was tremendous on Georgians. This effect was even felt from then to even today. Many synagogues were built in Georgia before World War II, including Hebrew Benevent Congregation Synagogue, which began construction in 1875. Many leaders from Georgia during World War II are Jacob Rothschild, who fought against the exploitation of workers in Pittsburgh. Rothschild entered Hebrew Union College in 1927. He was ordained in 1936, but after a few mistakes at different synagogues, he entered the army as a chaplain in 1942 to escape imprisonment. In the war, he saw what the Holocaust was like for the Jews and made an oath to save the Jewish community. After the war ended, he wanted to make an impact on the world and began running a synagogue and spreading out to teach people about what happened to the world. Many people did not like this and placed 50 sticks of dynamite in the north entrance and blew it up on the date October 12, 1958, but nobody was harmed or arrested from the blast. Rothschild then strengthened and gained support of many people. One of those people was Martin Luther King Jr. When King was assassinated, Rothschild then spoke to the people at the memorial service at Atlanta, Georgia. Rothschild focused his efforts at helping Jews escape prejudice because of what he saw during World War II. He helped many, but died from a heart attack at the age of 80. His legacy carried on and impacted the significance of the Holocaust to Georgians. Georgia had a special connection with the 32nd President of the United States of America. The president once was very athletic and in good shape, but while in Maine, he developed polio in his legs. Polio is a crippling disease that infects a person's brain and it could cause paralysis. FDR was at the Democratic Convention when he met Foster Peabody. Peabody was a banker at Columbus, Georgia, and knew about warm water springs. He told FDR about this place and told him it would help his polio and stress. FDR then later went there on his first trip. He loved it, and the people at the place. He could not sleep the first night because of the squirrels running across the roof. But the next day, he started swimming and was able to stand in 4 feet of water, which he was not able to do anywhere else. Later that day, he started walking by the countryside and saw his first glimpse of poverty, which later inspired his New Deal. Eleanor left Warren Springs once he was settled in, but FDR wrote to her about his experience, and he saw this as an opportunity and had a very special connection with Georgia. Overall, FDR impacted Georgia with his visits and his plan for the New Deal that was mainly toward the South in Georgia.
The Bell aircraft was a 663 Boeing-designed B-29 bomber, which were given to the USAF near the end of the war. The corporation turned the small rural Cobb County into a major industrial center of Sunbelt. The facility would have these B-29s delivered to the Air Force by the end of the year. After the war had ended, the plant sat idle until 1951 when it became Lockheed, Georgia, which later became Lockheed Martin. The well-trained managers and employees proved that the Southerners were up to the task of handling sophisticated and meticulous industrial work. The military bases in Georgia would also be useful during the war with training the troops of the Air Force and the Navy. Due to the open space that is near the military bases, being near the ocean, proved as the best training grounds for the pilots and sailors. Other bases, such as Camp Gorgon, as it was called at the time, would be used as an internment camp for foreign POWs, or prisoner of war.